Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Repairing Advanced Technology Vehicles, Profit is Possible, brought to you by AutoSphere and asTech. My name is Hugh Evans, Editor-in-Chief for AutoSphere, and I'll be moderating today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode, but are invited to submit questions in the chat, which we can answer during the Q&A session immediately following the presentation. And at this point, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Chris Chesney. Chris is Vice President of Training and Organizational Development for Repairify, asTech's parent company. In this role, he leads Repairify's comprehensive training offerings for customers, industry partners, employees, and in-network technicians. With an impressive career spanning more than 50 years, Chris is a self-taught technician who has held every primary role in the automotive service industry. This includes master technician, shop owner, service advisor, technician, and management educator, as well as independent training consultant. Additionally, for 22 years, Chris has led the highly successful CarQuest Technical Institute, CTI. He is an active member of the Auto Care Association's Emerging Technology Council, ADAS Working Group, the ASE Training Managers Council, as well as a founding member of the Tech Force Foundation Future Tech Success Cabinet. Chris, welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Hugh. How are you doing?
Good, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
So thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. We will very much look forward to hearing from you today. And yeah, so let's dive right into it, shall we?
Sounds great.
Okay. So Chris, just starting out, tell us a little bit about what we need to consider when it comes to repairing advanced technology vehicles today, because I'm sure this is a cool question that's on the minds of a lot of people today, right?
It certainly is. It's probably the hottest topic in the industry, and at the end of the day, it affects both the collision and the mechanical side of the industry. What we see is many times over the last 20, 30, 40 years, tend to segment the vehicle into a mechanical repair or a collision repair. And today we can't do that because the technology on board the vehicle is so sophisticated. Many of the systems are designed to prevent or avoid accidents and reduce the impact of a collision. And so when you're dealing in the collision center with a vehicle that's been in an impact of any kind, it's affecting the electronic systems on board. And so we have to take those into consideration. So that skill set, the technology, and the processes that you have in place in a collision center need to consider the entire vehicle. So as we kind of have our conversation today around advanced technology vehicles and how you prepare to service those, whether it's on the mechanical or the collision side, the thing that we need to come to terms with early is that the vehicle will drive the repair, not the inspection, not the estimator, not the mechanic, not the technician, but the vehicle is going to determine what you need to do to return that vehicle back to its normal operating state, the way it was designed by the engineers. So to do that, collision centers need process. Well, I'm going to sit here and say collision centers probably have better processes than the mechanical shops in North America simply because they have to. They're fighting against compression of margin constantly because you have to meet the requirements of the OEM in the way it's repaired. You have to make sure that you're going to get paid by the carrier, so you're meeting their requirements. They're constantly trying to compress the margins and the labor rate that you can charge for performing those repairs. They may or may not understand certain repairs well enough for you to be able to charge for them, and they may not pay for them. So process is something that the collision industry is well aware of. But what I want to talk about today is how we optimize processes. And that process is really the enabler of profit. I think all of our audience are really focused on making money when they go to work every day. We obviously serve the community in the way we service their vehicles, both the mechanical and collision side, but we want to make money doing so. We want to feed our families doing so. And so to do that, we have to have processes in place to enable that profit. But to enable process, we need to be service ready. And service readiness, and I've got a slide I'm going to share with you just real quick, Hugh, so that we can see it. Service readiness is really the ability to be ready to service and repair a vehicle. That means you can't learn on the vehicle while the customer is there. Service readiness is really being able to be ready to repair a vehicle and service that vehicle before it shows up at your shop. And if we're not ready, then we have to learn on the customer's time. And in a collision center, cycle time is king. And so if we're learning how to research service information, or how to interpret scan tool data, or how to diagnose a data network that was damaged in an accident, that's not fair to the carrier, it's not fair to the consumer, and it's not fair to your business, because the time you're wasting in learning while trying to service that vehicle is not profitable at all. So you need to be service ready. And so service readiness enables the process, and the process enables the profit. And to be service ready, we need to have the right elements in place to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, one of the other things obviously is, and I'm sure this is on the mind of many of our attendees today, is talking about equipment and technology investments needed to repair these vehicles, right?
Right. I think there's three things that come to mind when we're talking about tools and equipment, and that's always what we want to talk about is what tool or what piece of equipment can I buy and put in my shop, and all of a sudden, magically, everything gets better. And so really, there's three things that you need in order to service these vehicles properly. You need the talent in place. You need the right people, and they need to be invested in. They need to be skilled, and they need to be doing the right jobs in your business. You need the technology, which can mean anything. It could be tools or service information, or it could be a machine, or it could be just the scan tool that's connected to the vehicle, and you're doing a pre-scan on a collision vehicle before you touch the vehicle, before you do your initial estimate, and you have that there to be able to connect to the vehicle and make a decision on what to do next. And then you need process, and all of these work together. And so when we talk about the talent side of things as it relates to process, which we talked about just a few minutes ago, that process is really driven by the people that you put in place to carry out each step. And it's critical that you don't just put anybody that's available in each step or to perform each task. You need to allocate your talent. So when you have somebody that's very skilled at doing, say, a body repair, that person does body repairs all day long. If they're skilled at aluminum repairs, they do aluminum, and that person should be doing aluminum repairs. If they're a painter, they're certainly not in here holding a scan tool doing a pre-scan. Now, it's easy for them to do that, but at the end of the day, why do you do a pre-scan in a collision center? Many collision centers do it because the OE said they should in their position statement. Many collision centers do it because the carrier said that we'll pay you to do it, and they'll do a pre-scan, and that's all they'll do. They're really looking for the codes that might have been there before the accident to mitigate the risk of the carrier. But that's the worst reason to do a pre-scan, in my opinion. A pre-scan, if done correctly, and in the hands of a skilled technician, that technician can analyze the data that they receive from that pre-scan and enable the estimator to be very accurate in the preliminary estimate, to identify all opportunities that are available on that vehicle, and plan for those profit opportunities in the initial estimate, so that you don't end up down the road with this scenario. Maybe you do a scan on the vehicle and you put initial estimate together, and during the repair you discover that in the right rear quarter panel there's a blind spot radar sensor and it was damaged, and you repair that quarter panel according to OEM process, and your skilled repair technician does that. and then you order a blind spot radar sensor and you bolt it on and you finish up the repair, you put the bumper cover on, you paint the vehicle, you deliver the vehicle to the customer, and the customer comes back a day later and says, the light on my right rearview mirror doesn't come on until the car passing me on the right is almost clear past my front fender, whereas the light on my left rearview mirror comes on when the car that's passing me is in my blind spot, like I'm used to. What's wrong? And what's wrong is the estimate did not include the calibration or even the configuration of that controller. That controller might need to be initialized by introducing it to the data network. It needs to be calibrated so that it's accurate in the way it's positioned. It might even need to be adjusted in the way of plumb or level when it's installed on the quarter panel before you put the bumper cover on, so you can even calibrate it. All of those things need to be identified early so that you're not delivering that vehicle and now you're back with a vehicle that's back, or worse yet, you're writing supplement after supplement for each of these steps to try to get this vehicle repaired correctly and delivered to the customer. So you need the talent, you need to train them, you need the technology, you need the tools or technology or partnership with somebody that provides that for you, and you need the processes to enable that.
So that's some really great points there, Chris.
Okay.
So obviously, with that in mind, so we talked about equipment technology investments. There's obviously training requirements as well, aren't there, for both the staff and the technicians who are going to be doing the work, correct?
Right. So one of the things that we have available to us in the industry is a lot of resources. And this slide depicts what I call the service readiness circle or ring. And you see the talent at the top and you see the tools at the bottom, which we've talked about so far. And then we've got the training and the service information off to the right. And all of those things need to be implemented in a proper way. And when it comes to training, that technician, that talent, needs to be fully skilled in the use of the tools and the service information before the vehicle shows up. So if you're expecting a technician to calibrate a forward-facing camera on any vehicle, they need to refer to service information, right? So the first time they need to do it, they need to follow that service information. I will tell you that if they did one yesterday and that same vehicle type rolls in their bay today, and they have to do the same calibration, they better open up service information and read it again, because all of our service information systems are electronic. And the manufacturers, the OEMs, are changing processes and procedures for calibrations hourly. I've seen it change in the same day on a vehicle that I've worked on in the lab. And so you have to be prepared for that. So how do you do that? You've got to train your people. You've got to have a career path for each of your roles in the shop. And if you have a process, you need to train to that process. It's not a team where we adjust our game plan to the talent that we have on the field. In the case of a collision center or mechanical shop, I've got to train my talent to my process. The vehicle doesn't know who's working on it. It doesn't know what tool you're connected to with it. All it knows is I've got an issue and I'm going to tell you what I see. It's up to the technician to be skilled enough to have been invested in, to be fluent in the tools that they have available to them, to be able to find the service information they need quickly, and to, more importantly, this is the most important thing I can share today, is read the doggone service information. Don't just say, I have service information, and say, yeah, I've got service information. I calibrated one of these last month. Here's how I do it. And not read it today. Today's vehicles, advanced technology vehicles, in the way of you making mistakes if you don't follow those steps. So you get cheated out of your profit if you don't stick to that process. So how do you do that? You have to have a career path for your people. You have to have, that career path has to match what they're going to do. They have to be assigned to that role. You're not going to take an entry-level technician with a scan tool that he uses every day and does pre-scans that can't analyze the data and then put him in the paint booth and paint a car. So the same thing's true for, you know, a diagnostic technician doing repair work or a repair technician doing a pre-scan or a post-scan or calibration. They have to be trained to that. And today's cars mandate it, and your customer is paying for that, either through their premiums to the carrier or directly to you as a customer pay event.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting, Chris. And I'm sure many today will really sort of take that on board. I think one of the other things to consider perhaps is, you know, the vehicle technology, as you mentioned, is changing all the time. And I think one thing is that collision centers really need to ensure they can deliver consistent and accurate repairs, correct?
Correct. It's really important to make sure that they validate those repairs once they're performed. Many times, the reason we don't diagnose a problem correctly is the same reason we get a car back. And it's not that we maybe diagnosed it incorrectly, but we didn't validate the repair or complete the repair. So the example I gave earlier of the blind spot radar sensor, if I didn't initialize that to the vehicle and the vehicle knows it's there, then I'm going to have a problem getting it out the door. But so I come along and I calibrate or I initialize it, and now it can communicate to the network. So now I calibrate the vehicle. How do I know it's calibrated? So many times you're asked by service information to do a static calibration where we're placing targets, physical targets in front of or around the vehicle, and placing them precisely is critical. And then we enter into the scan tool and we tell the sensor that the targets are placed right, it's time for you to calibrate, and it initiates a calibration. But many times we're also asked to do a dynamic calibration, and service information will guide you through that. Where you road test the vehicle, it sees enough targets alongside the road or in traffic to satisfy the software internally to say, I'm calibrated. I can see what I need to see, and you can give this car to the customer and they're going to be safe. It's in a, what I call, it's in a ready to crash state. So most of this technology is just sitting, bypass, it's sitting in a rest state. It's watching, it's not active. It's just, it's ready to activate if something's wrong. Well, you can't give the customer that job of testing that for the customer. So even if the vehicle that you calibrated or you repaired does not require a static calibration, requires a dynamic, or if it requires a static but no dynamic, in every single case, you must test drive the vehicle. And you must drive it in an environment that activates or allows you to observe the activation of the technology, automated emergency braking, lane keep assist, the cross traffic, the blind spot monitors, all those technologies you need to observe. Number one, you need to go into the menu on the dash and make sure they're activated. And then you need to drive the car and see if they activate. Don't leave that to your customer. Make sure you do that before you send the car out.
Yes, no, I think that's obviously a prime consideration here. And I think, Chris, from today's webinar, we can see that there's a lot of things for shops to consider with these advanced technology vehicles. But I think one question is a lot of them are going to be asking is like, how can a partner like asTech and Repairify sort of help them in this process? Because it's in a way, I don't know if a steep learning curve is the right term, but it's certainly a new learning curve, and there's a lot to kind of absorb, isn't there?
It's massive if you don't have a plan in place. And the primary thing that you want to find is resources and partners that can help you. I'm going to be the first person that tells you that there's not very many facilities in North America that have everything they need to do the job perfectly on every vehicle. You're going to have gaps. And the thing that asTech Repairify do best is identify those gaps and provide technology solutions for that. What we really do is we're scaling the talent and the technology that you might not have available in your shop. So the example might be a pre-scan with the ability to scan that vehicle quickly while your technician the work. You might have a good master tech on staff that does the calibrations, that does the initialization of controllers when you replace them. But the last thing you really want that person to be doing is doing pre-scans, because a pre-scan is really simple if you have the talent in the room, but that skilled master technician, that's not really where you should apply him. Keep them productive on the things that make you money and a profit opportunity. What we can do is we can connect using our technology, and you see the slide on the screen where we have the master tech in the center with one of our devices, the asTech device, that enables us to give you that asTech device. You plug it in to the vehicle, into the data link connector in the vehicle, and we guide you to plug that in and train you to turn it on. You turn it on and make a request through a tablet or your mobile device to have us pre-scan that vehicle. That shows up in our queue. One of our master technicians that are sitting remote connect our OE scan tool to that vehicle virtually through the cloud. It's like connecting a factory scan tool with a long extension cord to your vehicle, and our team performs the vehicle scan. And we push that to the cloud back to you in an email or in your data systems if you're integrated with CCC or Mitchell. And we give you the ability to have that scan happening in the background while your people are doing productive work. Then your team can take that report and they can view it and analyze it. If you get to the point where you're calibrating and you don't have the OE scan tools and you want to perform an OE calibration, we can do the same thing. You set the targets, we'll train you to set the targets. You make the calibration request, our team connects to your vehicle and calibrates the sensor. So we can provide those services to you that give you the ability to place your people in the right spot in your workflow, number one. Number two, gives you a tremendous profit opportunity with good margin, because we'll give you an invoice that you place on the estimate that the carrier will pay, and then we invoice you less so that you have margin in the game. So you don't have to have that question about, am I going to make any money on this? The reason we do all these steps is to keep the vehicle safe, because the vehicle was designed to keep the passenger or the motor safe. At the end of the day, we're here to help you close the gaps and help you make money in putting that vehicle back in that state.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you for that. There's been some really great insight today, and it's been wonderful to have you on the webinar. So we do have a couple of Q&A questions here, and I thought we could kind of just jump into those a little bit. So the first one really is, how can I ensure my facility is able to properly perform advanced vehicle repairs, including the space requirements and lighting for calibrations?
Space requirements are always the first question. The second is, which calibration equipment or scan tool or system should I buy? And so space requirements are in service information. And one of the things that we do very well is when we partner with you on calibrations, we will help you and assist you in doing an evaluation of your facility with respect to space. But when we do that, we adhere to the OEM specifications. You can't have clutter in the shop. You can't have big metal objects close to the vehicle. So on an alignment rack, you can do forward-facing cameras rather easily. But on that alignment rack, it's typically difficult to do radar sensors on the back end of the vehicle, just because it's too close a proximity to the post on the hoist or something of that nature. So we'll help you evaluate that. On the tool side of things, on the scan tool side of things, we only do OE calibrations because that is the guidance that we're we're sticking to at this point in time. With respect to the targets, there are many target manufacturers out there, including the ones that provide the OE targets, and you want to use an OE size target. You don't want a target that's been resized to enable the calibration plate or the placement of that target to be closer or further away from the vehicle to overcome space requirements. That doesn't work. The OEMs have proven it. We've proven it in the lab. So you want to make sure you have that in place. But we'd be happy to partner with you, and our team can do that. And you can reach out and contact us on the email that you see on the screen.
Okay, great. Another question is, like, as a shop owner, are there any specific considerations when it comes to OEM versus aftermarket scanning?
That's a great question. The thing that we are in the process of is answering that question. We have the OEM tool stacks across North America and other parts of the world where we have over 1,000 OE tools in the stack and in each stack, and we have every OE scan tool. We don't have Ferrari, I'm sorry, but we do have everything else. In fact, we're preparing for all the electric vehicles as well. So if you need to calibrate a BMW or an Audi or Mercedes or any of those vehicles, a Polestar, we can handle that. But if you're trying to buy the equipment, I will tell you that the aftermarket scan tools typically don't catch everything as far as a pre-scan and trying to inquire about all modules on all systems. And you need to pull every module in every system to make sure you know what's there and what's missing. And we use technology that we have been put into place with our pre-scan that allows us to take the VIN number of the vehicle and the collision location on the vehicle and the severity, and reach in and research the build data for that vehicle and service information and tell you what calibrations you're going to need to perform and what sensors may be impacted by that. So we give you that good information, but you need to know, or you need to have a scan tool that reports all of those modules. The OEs we know are the gold standard. There are many good aftermarket scan tools. What we're doing is we're testing all of them and comparing them to the OE. We have thousands and thousands of year, make, model, trim tests that we've performed, and you'll see that in our software, in our application soon, that system will allow you to make that decision. Is an aftermarket scan appropriate for this situation or not? And so keep your eyes open for that coming to your asTech device very soon.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I mean, that's fantastic. Our final question really is concerning repair planning. So are there any special repair planning considerations when it comes to advanced technology vehicles?
Well, number one, follow OE process. That's the first thing. Number two is find as much information, triage the vehicle thoroughly enough at the very beginning before you start your initial estimates so that you can get as much data in your hands as you can, and then have skilled teammates on staff that can analyze that information and help the estimator make good decisions about what the vehicle needs. The worst thing you can do in this whole process with advanced technology vehicles is get through the repair process and discover things that you could have seen in the triage process that ultimately creates a total loss situation. And that creates a messy problem that none of us want to be in the middle of. You certainly don't, because that mitigates any profit that we may have opportunity that we may have had with that vehicle. So it gets down to just having those processes in place that allow me to gather as much as I can at the front of the event rather than learning about it when it's too late.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Some great information there. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so maybe we'll just hang on for a couple of more minutes here. And, but I would just like to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to have you on this webinar. And Chris, really thank you very much for your tremendous expertise and your tremendous experience in the industry. I think you've done lots of different things, haven't you?
I've been in the industry for 51 years, so I've had a few experiences in the last 5 years to 10 years, actually, with advanced driver assist systems has been exciting. So anytime we can help, we'd be happy to.
Okay, fantastic. Well, as you can see, there's contact information on the screen there, so we'll leave it up just for a few more seconds. And in the meantime, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to submit them. If we can't get to them today, we can always get you to reach out directly to Chris and to the team, and they'll be happy to answer them for you.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. Okay, everyone, I think that's probably it. So Chris, thank you so much. To our attendees, thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone.